Okay, in this tutorial I'm going to show off more of an advanced look at Circular Gravity Force 3. Circular Gravity Force 3 can be purchased on the Unity Asset Store, and you can also check out the links and descriptions below. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Empty Scene in Prototypes, and we're going to go ahead and kind of mess around here with some of the more advanced features that you can kind of deal with. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Tools, CGF3 Wizard, and what I'm going to basically go over is maybe some of the mods and triggers in this video, and kind of show off what you can do with them. I would definitely recommend you checking out the just the basic video and the car tutorial and rocket tutorial before you guys jump into this video, just to kind of give you the basics first before you jump into this one. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll just show off kind of what Pulse does. And we'll go ahead and drag in some objects here to mess with, and I'm just going to drag in some basic blocks here. So let's go ahead and go to 3D, physics objects, and we'll go to wall cubes, and I'm just going to go ahead and just duplicate these a few times and just kind of align them up. And kind of clean up my scene here, duplicate a few more, and okay. So I'm going to go ahead and check Pulse here, and then I'm going to go ahead and just create the CGF. And I'm going to go ahead and move this guy kind of next to the wall here. And I'm going to kind of turn it a little bit smaller. Okay. So you'll notice when I clicked Pulse, it added this this other script here. And we're going to go ahead and set the minimum size to maybe 3 and then maximum size to 10. And we'll have Pulse enabled, and you'll just basically kind of see what it does here. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Game Scene here, and then I'm going to hit Gizmo so I can see what's going on. And I'm going to go ahead and move my camera and just face it in that direction. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit play. So you can see basically the Pulse is that's pretty much what the Pulse does. Basically it manipulates the size of the CGF, and you can set different options here. Like I could say, like if I wanted the size to be like 100, or if I wanted the speed to be up really fast, like 100, you can kind of see it pulse really fast there. And then I can set the minimum size. I could set it to 0, or let's just put it at 5, and then I'm going to go ahead and maybe make my force power a negative, maybe 30, and then I'm going to set the size to 100, and then you'll see it kind of suck everything. If I kind of go out here, you can actually see it really stretching big all the way to 100. Maybe I'll set the force power to 10 there so it's not as crazy. Anyway, that's kind of an example of what you can do with Pulse. So let's jump into another one here. Let's go back to our wizard, and I'm going to go ahead and delete the one that had the Pulse on it. And then we're going to go ahead and do size by raycast. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and hit raycast on this one. You can also do it with sphere, but it kind of gives a better idea of what this actually does. And we created it, and I'm going to set it kind of in the scene here. Now you'll notice that again, it added another script with basically dealing with size. And what this does is it overrides the size, kind of like the Pulse, but it's based off of a raycast, and you can kind of see like this little white laser that's kind of coming out of the CGF. And if I move it over here, so you can see it actually touching it right there. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to size our circular gravity force based on the raycast. And you can also set a maximum size if you want to, and an offset value. And let's go ahead and just move this over here, and I'll give you a better understanding of how this actually works. And then also I'm going to make it so that the force power is negative. And then also we're going to go ahead and give our max size maybe like 50, and it's going to be pretty big. But you can kind of see that it's touching these boxes right here, and you can kind of see it. There's another circle here, but that's basically showing the offset distance. So if I change the offset distance to, and I'll just kind of move it slowly, but you can actually see it, that sphere kind of actually moving. but we're going to go ahead and just leave it at 1. So, and then we're going to go ahead and move our camera over here, and then I'm going to just go ahead and hit play. And what it's going to do is it's just going to pull all the boxes kind of off the top. You can kind of see it. It's like this little gravity hook kind of thing. And it's entirely based off of just a raycast, so it's sizing the circular gravity force based on a raycast. You can also do this with a sphere too, so I could change it to, or a capsule if I wanted to. But we're going to go ahead and try out a sphere. So it's going to actually size the sphere to the raycast of what it's actually touching. And we can also do, let's see here. Here, actually, I'll show an example of kind of what happens when you have the size really low. So let's set it to 10. Maybe it'll stop, actually. We'll see. Oh, there we go. So you can actually kind of see. So I set the size to 10, so the maximum size it's actually going to get is 10. And I'm going to set this back to just a raycast, and we'll hit play. So it's just going to grab a few of them, and then it stops because we had our max size to 10 and it only reached that far. So that's more of an example of how basically how the size by raycast works. Pulse and size, all they do is just override the size part here in the circular gravity force. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that, and we're going to go to the next one here. And let's make one for enable here. And I'm going to go ahead and just leave all this stuff the same and create it. Oh, let me go back to, let me focus on one of my cubes here and then go ahead and create it. And I'm going to go ahead and move it kind of to the side of it and maybe down so that it kind of has this explosion effect. And you'll notice when I created this with an enable, it created a child property here. And basically what this this does is it's basically a trigger, and it's almost like a tripwire. So if anything gets in front of it, you can set it so that it's either enables the circular gravity force or disables it based on what it's hitting. And I'll kind of give an example of this by just kind of moving this guy over here. And white again is basically it's not touching anything. If I move it kind of towards those boxes, you can kind of see it getting triggered there. And so if I hit play here, you'll notice it's not turned on right now. That's because nothing is actually touching this wire right now. And if I go ahead and take one of these boxes, and I'm just going to set this one to kinetic so I can actually just move it around. Oh, well, let's try this again. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to move this guy over here. I'm also going to move this box over here too and kind of make sure. Oh, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that when this box actually falls and touches the tripwire, it actually triggers my content getting fired here, or my circuit gravity force turning on. And I think that's aligned. I'll put it over here, and then I'm going to kind of give it so that we have a little bit of a timing. So right when this thing actually falls and hits this trigger, it's going to turn on my CGF. So I'm going to go ahead and put the camera facing all this so you can kind of see it. Hit play. You notice once the box touches that, then it turns on the CGF. And if I go into my scene here and I click on the enable trigger and I move it up, you can see it turned off. But if it's touching it, it turns on, off, on, off, on. I can also do the same thing. If I go to the trigger enabled, there's a few different options that you can set up here. So there's another thing for max distance again, and there's also a trip value. So I can make it so that it's when it's turned on, it'll start off on when I start, and then if something gets tripped in front of it, then it'll actually turn it off. So then you can see it actually turn off there. Anyway, so that's kind of an overview of triggers, and I actually kind of want to do some more tutorials and make some kind of creative stuff where you can kind of maybe have like a tripwire and it sets off a bomb or something like that. So let's go ahead and go over some hovering stuff here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all my cubes except for one here. And my CGF here, I'm going to remove that one. And then we're going to go ahead and we'll make this box hover for the heck of it. So I'm going to kind of drag it up here and then focus on it. And we're going to go ahead and bring up our window. You can also press Control-Shift-W to bring up the CGF window or wizard. And let's go ahead and click on, we're going to create everything here, except we're going to also change this to a raycast. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and just say force for the force type, and then also acceleration, just to make the hovering kind of a little bit more nice. And then we're going to go ahead and make sure that hover is selected or checked, and then hit create CGF. And we want to make this thing hover, so you're going to have to make it so that the force is pushing up on it. And you can also check out the hovering. I think it's like the Hovercraft tutorial, and it'll actually kind of, and I walk you through kind of how to set up some hovering stuff for a more in-depth look at it. But I'm going to go ahead and just set it up here. So we're applying force up to the box, and then the hovering thing just created this this child object that basically is used to measure the distance between this object and the ground. And what you want to do is you want to center this guy right in the center of the box, which it's centered now. And let's go ahead and hit, well, so we want to parent our CGF with the cube first. That's important, so that it doesn't move around. And then also, yeah, let's go ahead and move the camera facing this way, and then hit play. And it kind of does this little jumping. So we want to lock the axis on the cube real quick. And we're going to go ahead and go to, we're going to go to rigid body, and I'm just going to go ahead and lock down the rotations on the XYZ. Let's see here. Actually, we don't want to lock down Y. We're going to lock down X and Z, but not Y. And then we're going to hit play. And it kind of has this bouncy effect. Let's go ahead and select our cube again, and then under rigid body, we're going to go ahead and give it a drag of 1, and then an angular drag of 0.5. And then hit play. And then it should be a little bit more smooth. There we go. And that's kind of just an overview of how to get something to hover. You can also do some more crazy hovering if you want to. We could also say, like I could actually make this object spin if I wanted to and hover by pivoting my CGF on the object if I wanted to, and I can do that really quick to show you guys how to do that. What you want to do is just focus on the cube again, and then make an empty game object. I'm going to press Control-Alt-N, I think it makes a child. Yeah, there we go. And this is going to be our pivot, so I'm going to just name it pivot. Let's see here. And we're going to go ahead and put our CGF object in the pivot. And we're going to go ahead and lock our pivot down. And you're just going to go to Add Components and then just type in lock. And there's a lock to script. You can also make your own script to lock it, but this basically just locks the rotation of our pivot so that it doesn't move around. And I'm going to go ahead and go to our cube again and just take off the XY freeze rotation. And hit play. And you'll notice it's hovering. I'm going to just duplicate one cube here, or the cube again, and I'm going to move it up like here, and then I'm also going to remove our CGF out of that one. Also, I'm going to make it so that this box is the only thing affected by my CGF object here. And what you want to do is you just want to click on CGF, GameObject filters and say only affect listed GameObjects, and then go to list the GameObject list and just type in 1 and then drag and drop your cube into there. So that way our force that we're applying to this box only applies to the box and nothing else that it touches. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move this box up so that it kind of falls on this object, and you'll see more of how this hovering works. And it's really cool. You can kind of do some pretty cool stuff. So it's hovering, and then yeah, there we go. So you can kind of see that the object is still hovering, but it can still rotate in the air, and you can do some pretty cool stuff with this. Yeah, let's make I can make the hovering distance pretty high if I wanted to. Actually, let me take the cube again, and then let's not give it an angular drag. Let's give it 0, so it's always going to just kind of rotate. Just kind of give it a funner effect. There we go. If we wanted to, we could put maybe a whole bunch of these cubes in here. Yeah, I'll just duplicate a few of these. Show you guys some kind of cool effects you can kind of do. There we go, so we have a whole bunch of them. I'm gonna turn off my gizmo here so you can kind of see it in action. And let's maybe center on all of our objects here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just make one of my circular gravity things here just to kind of push them or mess with them. And we're gonna go ahead and go to sphere, force, and create. So I'm just gonna go ahead and maybe, I don't know, we'll just push them all this way, and I'll set the size kind of big. And move my camera in a way that looks kind of fun. And hit play. There they go. So they're all kind of getting pushed. But they're all hovering, but they're all, yeah. Let's go with the default black hole effect. Or I'll just make it so that it barely pulls them into the center of this, and you'll kind of see them all hit each other. And 1. Maybe kind of make them hover off. So that's pretty cool. So that kind of gives you an idea of how some of this hover stuff kind of works. I'll show you guys one more thing. Let me go ahead and stop here. And let's go ahead and delete all of our stuff. Maybe delete our other cube. And I'm going to bring the wall of cubes back in here. And I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this just real quick. And then let's say I want to add like an effect to, or just some sort of effect that I don't know, like maybe some sort of fire effect to my cubes that get touched by the circular gravity force. It's kind of useful for like if you were, I don't know, making a game like with a mage or something, and you pushed a whole bunch of objects out of the way and you made them like all catch on fire or something with a particle effect. So I'm going to go ahead and right click here and just say, we'll just make an object that we want to use. And it's pretty easy. Let's just go into, let's see here. Particle system. Okay. And let's go ahead and maybe make the duration like 1. Make it slow. Okay. There's our fire effect. I'm totally not very good at making particles, but we'll go ahead and just use that for now. And then let's say I'll make this just a little bit smaller. 0.1 starting speed, put it that, and then I'm going to go ahead and say emit with a sphere. There we go. That's kind of cool. And that's about as simple as I'm going to get. We'll put some. This will be our fire effect. Don't judge me on my graphics here. Okay, so we have our particle effect that we want to use, and I'm just going to call this, I don't know, like particle system fire. And this is just an example of how to show you guys how to make some effects with these. And I'm going to go ahead and just make this a prefab by dragging it into my project folder here, and I'm going to delete that. And then we're going to go ahead and focus on both these boxes and make a CGF object. And I'm going to go ahead and maybe make this CGF the shape of it. I'm going to make it just a capsule. And I'm going to just kind of face it off so it's not touching our boxes. And maybe set the radius maybe like 2. Size, let's go ahead and give it maybe 10. Okay. And so we want to tie our particle system to whatever boxes get affected. And to do this, what you do is you just select the CGF object and go to Special Effects. And another thing you can do too is make it so that there's no gravity also, which is nice, and I'll maybe show that off real quick. But we'll go ahead and just, so you'll see that there's this attached GameObject, and you just drag and drop the particle system that we just made in there. And so that is pretty much what it is. And then also time affected, so this is going to be how long that effect is going to stay on that object. So let's give it like 3 seconds. And then let's go ahead and hit play. And I'm just going to do this in the scene here. But I'm going to rotate this object. And you'll notice now all those things that we just touched actually has that particle effect for the 3 seconds anyway. Let's go ahead and make this a little less powerful. Let's make it like 1 or 2. And then rotate it. So you can kind of see our particles on those boxes that we just affected for 3 seconds. We could also do this, so physics effect, we can also say no gravity, which I really like this one. This one's really cool. But if we touch things, it actually makes those things actually 0G for 3 seconds, and then they fall off. And it also gets rid of the particle effect too. I don't really like that fire look. Let's make it blue. There we go. That's kind of cool. And then maybe, just for the heck of it, to make it a little prettier, we'll go to world space so that it's not local particles. There we go. That's cool. Anyway, that's kind of an idea of how that works. And you don't have to put a particle system. You can put any kind of game object you want, which is, yeah, you can pretty much put anything you want to on it, and just it creates a child onto that object. And just be really careful, because if you start putting things with rigid bodies in there, then you might get some weird effects. Anyway, that's pretty much it for kind of more of an advanced look at CGF 3. You can also check out the links and descriptions below to kind of get an idea of some other tutorials and stuff like that. But anyway, you guys have a good one.